Hey everyone, it's Samia Khan here with a Fox 10 News Now update. We are going to take you to New York, where Governor Andrew Cuomo is discussing the massive snowstorm that is about to hit the state of New York. I believe he's now currently taking questions from the media, so I am going to go there.
It would be treacherous, and they should be home at that time.
Governor Malloy has issued a travel ban on all roads after 9 p.m. So if folks are on a Metro North that gets them to Connecticut after that time, they have to then drive their car to get home. How does that work with their synchronization with the other ends of the railroads at this point?
Well, other ends of the railroad, yes. Your point is other states. Obviously, every state makes their own decision, and different states are anticipating different levels of the storm. Connecticut is supposed to be very badly hit. And Connecticut, for us, is comparable to Long Island and really the eastern tip of Long Island. So Connecticut has put a travel ban on all roads in effect at roughly 9 o'clock. We are considering, as I mentioned, a total travel ban at 11 p.m., depending on the 4 o'clock weather advisory. But in terms of Connecticut's decision, they are going to get hit worse than we are, theoretically, and therefore they're closing their roads earlier.
What I'm getting at, have you considered shutting down Metro North so you don't put people in the position of getting off in the middle of their travel ban?
The reason I messaged it the way I did, which is they should be off the system, they need to also accommodate whatever travel time from their ending point on our system. And if in the case of Connecticut customers who would be riding the Harlem line, they need to factor that into the equation. So they need to be home by 9 o'clock in that case and on our system much earlier.
Have we had a closure like this for snow? We did for Sandy, clearly, but at least in recent memory, have we had a closure this thorough?
We have had, well, who's we? In the state of New York, yes, we have had closures of roads because of snowstorms. We've
Mass transit system.
Besides Sandy, we have taken precautions in snowstorms. I don't believe we've closed the system in a snowstorm. Do you recall?
Not a total closure. We've had line closures in a storm in 1996 where we had to close lines because they were impassable, but a total system closure, no.
And part of the closure rationale is to make sure you don't damage the trains so they can get back up to service as quickly as possible after the storm.
If there is limited service, if you decide that's night, how long does it take to resume regular service, given the conditions?
Once the weather clears up, this will allow us to resume regular service as soon as the weather clears up because the trains will have been protected.
But do you think, given that the blizzard is going to go well into tomorrow, that's not going to happen?
Well, obviously, if the blizzard, as predicted, is ferocious tomorrow, then we would stay on limited service or closed, whatever the case may be.
This is for Tom Pendergrass. So the limited service after 7 or 8, is that everything goes to local and there's just no express? Can you just, for the subways I'm talking about?
The place we lay the equipment up are the express tracks, and as those tracks become fouled and you can't run trains on them, the system starts to shrink in size. So by the end of when you're laying up all the equipment, you've used all the express tracks up. But that's well into the evening. That's between 8 and 10 o'clock at night.
So you'll be able to ride the subway, you just won't be able to get an express track tonight? Is that basically?
That's correct, but depends on where you're starting from and where you're going to. The outside elements of the system, the open cut portions, the elevated structures, they're more at risk to be able to run in heavy snowfall and blizzard conditions.
What are the chances that you might actually close down the whole subway system?
Well, we'll see what the weather forecast is at 4 o'clock. If it's worse than we've heard thus far, we may take more dramatic action, but we won't know until 4 o'clock.
Sorry, excuse me. Obviously, we're talking so much about New York City, the subways and all this kind of thing. So can you talk a bit about what seems to be a lack of coordination between the state and the city? I mean, you and the mayor had meeting kind of initial times for when these briefings are going to happen. So what's going on there in terms of
We have been totally coordinated. Our staffs are talking. I talk to the mayor all the time. So we are totally coordinated. We obviously have different jurisdictions. This is a storm that affects from Sullivan, Ulster, Long Island. I'll be going out there. And we have different responsibilities. We're responsible for the MTA, et cetera. But we're in total coordination. In terms of coordinating times that we talk to the press, sometimes there's a level of coordination you can't reach.
What about the closure of the Long Island Expressway again? When is that gonna happen?
We are anticipating, first there'll be a close down for trucks, tractor trailer trucks at 4 p.m. We are anticipating a potential closing the roads down, meaning only emergency personnel at 11 o'clock this evening will confirm after the 4 o'clock weather advisory, at which point we would put a travel ban into effect, which is what the state of Connecticut has put into effect for 9 o'clock. Again, we think Connecticut's weather is forecasted to be worse than ours, and that's the differential between the 9 and the 11 o'clock bans.
Governor, what about the eastern Long Island? They're gonna be very hard hit. They more often than not lose power. Are there contingency plans for that? Is the power authority doing anything out there?
We have been in contact with all the utility companies. PSE&G is the utility company on Long Island now. I'll be going out this afternoon. You're exactly right. The storms that tend to come up the coast tend to hit the eastern part of Long Island, Suffolk, harder than the New York City, Westchester area, and that's what they're forecasting here. That's why Connecticut is really bracing for a hard hit, and the eastern part of Long Island. And we're talking to the utility companies and making all the preparations we can. What happens on Long Island is you have overhead wires and many trees on Long Island, and the trees get heavy from the snow, and the wind blows, and a branch breaks, and it hits the wire, and the wire is down, and the power is out. During Hurricane Sandy, this went on for weeks and weeks. So we've made a lot of changes to the system, improvements, mechanical improvements, et cetera, but Mother Nature is still Mother Nature, and if there's significant damage to the system, then people should expect to be without power for a period of time. You cannot perfect the electric system on Long Island where there will not be damage during a significant storm. We're nowhere near that point.
Governor, you mentioned 7 feet of snow up in Buffalo. Portions of New York routinely get 7 feet of snow. Why do you think a foot or 2 feet has such an impact here?
It's all relative. 7 feet of snow, you get the attention of the people in Buffalo. 2 feet of snow, you don't. So, it's 7 feet was really incredible to see 7 feet. That was 7 feet without any drifts, right? So that is just 7 feet. You would see the entire front of a house above the front door, above the garage door, was all snow.
Do you think they're tougher up in Buffalo?
I'm not getting into that. But they do know there's snow up in Buffalo. That I can tell you. So it's relative. It's what you become accustomed to. It's what you're equipped for. They have their snow removal operation in Buffalo is really extraordinary. But, there is something, and I've said this in this room many times. I've only been governor in 4 years. I believe I've gone through more emergency disasters in 4 years than any governor in history has gone through. There is a pattern of extreme weather that we have never seen before. Buffalo sees snow. Buffalo had never seen 7 feet of snow before. So you're getting a repeat pattern of these extreme weather situations, whether it's Hurricane Sandy or 7 feet of snow. And that's part of the changing climate, I believe, that has brought this new extreme weather pattern. And it's something we have to adjust to. It's something that's very costly. It's also something that is very dangerous. And, New Yorkers, we're tough, and it doesn't matter, you should stay home. This is nothing to take lightly. We have had situations where people have gotten stuck on roads and snowed in and been in their cars for 12, 18, 24 hours. And we have been very lucky that we have never lost anyone in a situation like this. But it could be a matter of life and death, and that's not being overly dramatic. So caution is required. On all of these situations, what we're saying and what we have been saying, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock tonight, you want to be home and you want to stay home. When we're talking about closing the subway, Long Island Railroad, closing roads, we've been talking about it for 2 or 3 days. This is not an evening or a night to be out and about.
Tom, or for the governor, if you're working today in a hospital, you have an essential job, you take the subway home at midnight, what is your confidence level if that's an underground line, an E-train, for example, that at midnight tonight you can take that train home?
On an underground line, confidence level is very high, so they should be able to. But if they have to exit the system and traverse to go beyond the system, they have to factor that into the equation.
And look, we're also asking for help. When we say we want people off the roads, off the subways and the railroad, it's because people need to do their job to protect the system. If we get the subway cars put away, if we get the railroad cars put away, then it'll be easier to get the system up and running. If we get the cars off the roads, we can plow the roads. What happens on the roads is you get a couple of cars stuck, or you have one jackknife tractor trailer. That stops everything. Now you can't clear the road and the snow piles up. So it aggravates and it builds on itself.
And this is for Chairman Prendergast. On the open air stations, the open cut stations, what's being done there to ensure that things don't get too piled up?
Well, if you're familiar with our plans, we run de-icer trains. So as soon as the snow starts falling, we're putting de-icer trains out to keep the third rail clear and make sure the contact shoes could get their electrical power. We have other trains with snow throwers on them positioned in strategic places throughout the system. We've got the largest number of open cuts out in Brooklyn, but we've got the Dyer Avenue line up in the Bronx. And we've got other locations in the system that will be using those snow throwers. And so as the governor said, as travel diminishes and we bring trains in and lay them up, we can focus all of our efforts at snow fighting and make sure we're as ready as possible for the Wednesday morning commute, Tuesday morning commute.
The bus service is going to be affected for sure. What's your decision-making process as the snow comes down and roads are?
We saw a higher number of people coming in earlier. We hope they also self-select to go home earlier. So the buses that have the highest exposure to getting stuck are the articulated buses, so we'll chain those. But if demand is down, we'll bring those buses in and run what we call the 40-footers, the shorts. And then as demand continues to lower, we'll bring those buses into the depots and keep them safe.
Governor Cuomo, can I switch to Shelley Silver? Can you just sit down? as
Yeah.
speaker?
Can we just finish? Anything else on the weather?
Are any anti-gouging measures going into effect for gas, for Uber, for anything at all?
Uber gouging. That's a new concept I haven't heard of before in this situation. Not that we have heard of. It's a good question, but not that we have heard of at this time.
How about gas supply?
Gas supply at this time is fine.
What about, Governor, you had spoken about PSE&G and sort of the complication of having overhead wires, but I know your frustration with LIPA was that it took forever for them to get the lights back on. Is there any way to sort of hold their feet to the fire to make sure people get power back in an expeditious way?
Well, we're working with them, number one, in a cooperative way, where there are wires down, who can help get to that spot and who can help fix the wire as fast as possible. And then this is part of the regulation that they're under. Part of what a utility company has to do is be able to respond to a storm situation like this, and if they don't do it well, then that's a violation of their regulatory agreement.
What about the airports as for pattern for the governor? Any chance that, we know there's flight delays, any chance that an airport could actually get shut down?
Mr. Foy?
Closed, I think.
Yeah, look, there are extensive cancellations today. About 70% of the flights at LaGuardia have already been canceled. I expect that percentage to go up. At JFK, nearly 50%, about 50% of the flights have been canceled. Expect that number to go up as well. Tomorrow, there will be very extensive cancellations at actually all area airports. JFK and LaGuardia will continue to be open for emergency flight operations, but we would advise travelers today and tomorrow and any time there's weather like this to call ahead to carriers. But the answer is extensive cancellations and extensive delays when the airlines are bringing operations back into service.
Mr. Prendergast, is there any point where even the underground subways will be completely shut down?
I don't believe so, because there'd be no reason for us. We'd be able to run trains. And it is the essential part of transportation for people who must get around, including our own employees.
So the encouragement is to tell everybody try to be home by 11 o'clock, but, you know, if necessary, you will have, people have to know that there's an underground train route basically.
I think the governor stated it very well. This is an extremely serious storm. If you can be home, take care of yourself, and not expose yourself to the elements, because it's more than just riding our system, it's being out and about. And tomorrow will be an extremely difficult day, especially if we get 24 to 36 inches of snow. It'll be everybody focused on trying to get the system back up and running.
Also, what we're saying, just so we're clear, we were given firm times at 4 o'clock, which is when the last relevant weather report comes in. But at 4 o'clock, we may very well say the roads are going to be closed at 11 o'clock. We're going to limited service on the subway, limited service on the railroad, as you heard. So people should definitely plan now on expediting their travel plans and getting home as early as possible.
I wonder, Mr. if I could just clarify at the airports, you referred to the airlines making cancellations and passengers checking that, but in terms of what the PA does, the PA isn't closing anything or reducing staff at any of the
No, as a matter of fact, we're increasing staff. We're having staff sleep over, as are TSA, CBP, et cetera, so that when the airport is ready to open to commercial flights, we're ready to do that as quickly as possible. That's standard operating procedure. But for travelers, there are extensive cancellations today, and there will be very, very extensive cancellations tomorrow. The airports, however, will continue to be open to receive emergency flight operations, and the crews at JFK, LaGuardia, and Newark Airport will do what they do, which is to get the airports open as quickly as possible, quickly and safely as possible.
Okay? We try to give people early notice of these situations. We understand people have schedules, people have plans, be they work plans, family plans. So we try to give them as much notice as possible. But we also need people to really take the notice seriously. And it's early in the afternoon now, and we wanted to get them this information as early as possible. We'll confirm it at 4 o'clock. I don't believe there's going to be a change at 4 o'clock. So assume that your schedule is going to need to be expedited this evening, or you could have very long delays, or you could have a real problem. Getting stuck on a road is a real problem, and it's a real possibility tonight and tomorrow. Okay, any questions off topic? Yes.
Can you say what you think should shut down? Look at this power sharing.
I think, I only know what I've read in the newspaper, but I think it's a terribly unfortunate situation for himself. I think it's frankly a terrible situation for government writ large. It's another negative. It's another reason why people are cynical about the system and skeptical about the system. So we're trying to build trust in the system, and this is a negative that just brings up all the worst stereotypes of government. So I think it's very unfortunate. In terms of the Speaker's decision to allow step aside or step down, I don't know what the details actually are. From my point of view, the government functioning is very important. We have to pass laws, we have to pass budgets, You take something like today, this requires a lot of coordination, it requires funding. The government has to work. And the distraction of what's going on with the speaker, it hurts the functioning of government. So to the extent there's going to be a replacement that will run the assembly, I think that's a good thing, because from my point of view, my job is to get things done and to get the government working. And the assembly is an important part of that. I have...
To have 5 people doing, would it be better if Shelley just totally stepped aside?
Yeah,
Instead of letting these 5 people do it?
Well, first, the assembly, the legislature is a different branch of government, and the governor runs the executive, so I'm not going to tell them how to run the assembly. To the extent I have to interact with the assembly, committees, management by committee, I've never been a fan of, and I've never seen it work well. So I'd like to see what the actual configuration is that they come up with, when they come up with it, and then I'll have an opinion.
Governor, how do you anticipate that this new arrangement, this committee arrangement, will impact budget negotiations, which are obviously starting to get underway soon in Albany?
Well, that's the question. That's the functioning of government. What does the government have to do? One of the things is we have to negotiate a budget. I laid out a state of the state that probably had 70 proposals. How do we reform education? How do we bring broadband to people across the state? How do we do a tax cut? This is all important information, and these are all real-life decisions that make a difference in people's lives, you know? You're talking about their health care, you're talking about their security. So that the government works matters. Look at today. If government doesn't work, it can literally be a matter of life and death. So I'm focused on the functionality of government, and I want to know what the mechanism is that will replace the speaker. And as I said, all I know is what I've read and the quote-unquote committee. I don't know what that means. I can't negotiate with a committee, so I have to see what they actually come up with.
So would you rather see a single person then be appointed to take Mr. Silver's place, or
Yeah,
from the committee?
it's not really my place to tell them how to run their business. From my own selfish point of view, I don't understand how you negotiate with a committee, how I negotiate with a committee.
All right, guys, Governor, the last question, does this whole situation make you think or lead to any kind of change in how you feel about the shutting down of the law enforcement to begin with? And whether it should have been maybe too early, or down too early?
No, I don't think so. If anything, you look at the laws that we've actually passed over the years, which have brought more disclosure than ever before, and more disclosure for legislators of outside income, which is what this is really about. I think that those laws actually were the genesis of bringing this situation to light. So the more transparency, the better. Okay, thank you very much.
All right, as you just heard from Governor Cuomo, there have been road, train, and subway closures in New York. He's also warned residents of possible power outages. Both the states of Massachusetts and New York have declared a state of an emergency, and reports are saying that Philadelphia is going to declare a state of emergency around 6 p.m. Eastern Time today. Massachusetts Governor Charlie Baker is expected to speak about the blizzard and the state's response to the blizzard at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. So in just about 15 minutes, I will see if I am able to bring that to you live. And if so, we will have that here on Fox 10 News Now. I'm Samia Khan. This has been a Fox 10 News Now update, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.